Thanks, Mark. Hi everyone. Welcome to your parents' webinar for explaining what T levels are all about. My name's John Banks. I work in the apprenticeship team at Lloyds Banking Group. So delighted to have everybody on today. Hopefully, we've got a good mix of parents and sons and daughters coming to find out a little bit more. Yeah, you can see the agenda on screen. And pretty much what we're going to do today is have a voice of expertise from the world of education. So we've got Claire and Helen, who are from one of our partner colleges in Calderdale, and they're going to explain the basics of T levels, help you understand the construct of T levels. So Claire's going to kick us off in a moment, and then later on, Helen will help us understand some of the destinations post qualification as well. And then sandwiched in the middle of that, you've got my good self, who's going to give you a little bit of a view on how we do things at Lloyds Banking Group, where we've offered T-level placements for the last few years now, and importantly, why we've decided to do them as an employer. But probably the best bit of the session for me is straight after we've done that, is we're going to go over to Matt and Jamie Johnson. So Jamie's been there, done that, worn the T-level T-shirt, come out the other end as an apprentice, and Jamie and his dad are going to answer a little bit of a Q&A session with us. And feel free as well to ask your own questions as we go through that. So before I hand over to Claire, just a few logistics. We are on record, just so everybody's aware. We'll be publishing this session afterwards on YouTube, just to help us push that out a little bit further to others. Your mics should be on mute and your cameras should be off. But if you do need to ask a question, and would like to come off and ask that kind of verbally, there's a little hand button at the top menu, or there should be one there for you anyway. So if you just raise your hand when you've got a question, then we'll obviously bring it off mute and take that. There's also a Q&A function as well. So as we're going through, something might pop into your head and you think, oh, I must ask about this, or that's interesting, or tell me how that works. Feel free to do that as we're going along. And what we'll try and do is just answer the questions through the course of the session. But we'll also make some time for Q&A at the end as well. I'm delighted to have Elena Wilson from Department for Education as well to help us answer some of those questions as we go. So that's intros done, that's the agenda set, and I'll hand over to Claire to kick us off with a little bit of a start of a 10 on what are T levels.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, John. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for the webinar to learn all about T-levels. So this is a new and exciting qualification. So T-levels are in the 5th year at the moment. My name's Claire and I'm the Employer Engagement Team Leader at Halifax in West Yorkshire at Calderdale College. And I'm here to just briefly explain what T-levels are and how they can benefit the future of young people and school leavers. And then we're going to look at the differences between T-levels, A-levels and apprenticeships briefly. So I understand some of you will be school leavers yourselves or parents this evening. And it's important, obviously, to have all those choices available and an understanding briefly of what those choices are to you. So this session's designed to provide you with that key basic information so that you've got more information to make informed choices. So I'm going to talk about what T-levels are compared to other qualifications and the structure of the T-level. And then my colleague Helen, who's the Employer Engagement Officer in my team, who's sat beside me this evening, will be talking about progression routes and career options as well. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have, so feel free to pop those in the chat and we will be able to answer those at the end of the session. So I'm going to start off by just talking briefly about the options for school leavers. So there will be many courses that you could apply for when you are leaving school and going on to further education. However, this evening we're just talking about 3 level 3 qualifications. So we've got A-levels, we've got T-levels, and we've also got apprenticeships. And we are going to be looking at each one of those just in small detail. So really, if we start off with the A-levels, most people will be aware, because they've been around for many years now, that this is more of an academic-based qualification. So you're based in the classroom, and this qualification is run over 2 years. And apprenticeships is more of a work-based environment. So you would be usually in a paid position in industry with an apprenticeship, and you'd be doing 4 days in the workplace, and then 1 day would be a day for study generally. And then T levels, I like to think T levels kind of sit in the middle of the two qualifications. It's also a level 3 qualification, and it's the opposite model of the apprenticeship. So it's usually 4 days in the classroom and then 1 day on industry placement. So the programme is a real nice mix of theory and practical experience and learning that you can actually achieve over the 2 years. And we are, like I said, in the 5th year running of T levels, so they have been very successful so far. The industry experience is really to prepare students for industry. So it gives you that really nice skill set that you can transfer to lots of different job roles when you actually go on to your future career path. So my team at our college are responsible for sourcing industry placements and engaging with lots of employers, small and large, medium employers as well locally, creating really exciting opportunities for our students to go do their work experience. And one of our connections and relationships that we have is with obviously Lloyds Bank and John and his team, who offer an amazing work experience opportunity for our students. And the students that go to Lloyds from our college are digital and business students at the moment, and they are having an amazing experience with Lloyds Bank. So some of the real benefits for the learners with a T-level course when they're actually going into industry experience will be they're gaining some practical experience. So they're putting what the theory that they've learned into classroom from college into the workplace. So they get to practice everything that they've learned theory-wise. They'll also gain lots of employability skills. So things that you can't learn in college, things that can't be taught. So this could be things like teamwork, communication, problem solving, speaking skills, sometimes things that are learnt through just observing different age groups and diverse people in the workplace. It also gives the student a really good insight to careers. So they get to see lots of different progression routes within the workplace and different careers they could apply for. And it also can lead to a lot of networking opportunities ready for employment as well. Just the next slide, please. Thank you. So we look at T-level grades here. We can see just briefly that each T-level does come with some UCAS points, which you can use towards your university application. So each T-level is awarded with UCAS points, depending on the grades that you actually achieve from your qualification at the end of the 2 years. So if you get a distinction, you would get 168 UCAS points. This is actually equivalent to 3 A-star A-levels. So it's really amazing that you get that qualification and UCAS point as well if you wanted to use that towards your university. And universities are generally more accepting of the T-level qualification now, and it does depend on your institution that you apply to, though, and the course obviously that you apply to what university and universities are looking for and how many points and which T-levels they do accept. So you just will need to check that. So if we look at the last government statistics, they gave out a success rate of over 87% of students were awarded a pass or above from their T-level grade in 23 to 24, and over 95% successfully completed their industry placement. And it has to be just noted that the industry placement is a mandatory part of the T-level course, so you can't pass your T-level without completing your industry placement first. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So there are 20 subjects available throughout the UK for different subject areas that you can choose from with the T-level. And we offer 6 of these at Calderdale College. We do digital, business, engineering, media, health and early years. And the general entry requirements to apply for a T-level would be 5 GCSEs at grade 4 or above, including maths and English. But some subjects will expect you to have a different subject specialism as well in a GCSE. So, for example, digital, you will probably have to have an IT qualification. And I know in health, you have to have a science. Again, I would check with your college provider because there are some colleges who are really strict with this grading, and some colleges will accept you on a lower grade. So don't be put off by that, because you can sometimes study some GCSEs like English, maths alongside your T-level if you don't get the higher grades on entry. And before I move on to some more statistics, I just wanted to mention that the T-level placement is 9 weeks in total over the 2 years. So it's equivalent to 45 days. And this works, the model can vary actually. Sometimes it's 1 day a week that you would go on your work placement, or sometimes you might do a block placement with your employer. So we work closely with employers to find out what suits their business needs and requirements and what works with our teaching staff with their curriculum delivery as well. So that is quite flexible, but you usually do get 1 day allocated per week towards your work placement, which is a day that's kept free to work on either work placement projects or do your placement. So it is actually the favourite part of the students' course. After speaking to many students, they absolutely love their work placement experience. So since the launch in 2020, T-levels have enrolled over 30,000 learners so far on their courses. That's in the UK, and over 16,000 learners have started a T-level since they started, with 58% growth in 23 to 24 since the previous year. So it's actually grown. From the figures from last year, it grew 58% in the previous year. So it's amazing how successful the T-levels are becoming. So thank you very much, and I'll pass you back over to John.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that overview, Claire. Mark's just popping in some of the links that you've referenced as well into the chat, so people will be able to access them as we go. And I think we've had our first question in from Lawrence as well. So if you ladies could kindly just have a quick look at that while I'm chatting, that would be fantastic. So if you just move us on, Mark, couple of slides. Industry placements at Lloyds and why. Yeah, just bump us on to the next one, please, Mark. So essentially, at Lloyds Banking Group, we've had a suite of talent propositions for 10 years plus now. So apprenticeships and graduate program, for instance, a bit of a staple course for us. And we offer interns, program and industrial placements for students who are at university as well. But for us as an organisation, we had a real gap for our under 18 work experience. And truth be told, your chances of getting work experience at Lloyds was probably if your mum and dad worked for the bank, or if there was somebody that you knew who worked for the bank and could maybe pull a few favours. So we were kind of really intrigued with T-levels, because for the first time there was a qualification that had built into the construct placement time with an employer. So we gave T-levels a go a few years back in 2022, and we just had 6 students at that time. So our founder members were Calderdale, the Manchester College, and Lara Trait, and other pockets, which I'll come on to explain in a second. But we loved them almost instantly. So we had students with us. As Claire said, that the process we went for was a block placement approach, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second as well. But the students went down really well. Line managers loved this fresh insight that was bringing into the organisation. You can see some of the quotes that we've had from those first students, and from supporting line managers as well. And so very, very quickly we said we like T levels. We actually ended up offering all of those 6 people an apprenticeship with us the following year, and then we scaled the program really, really quickly. So we did 70 placements in 23, 120 placements last year, and this year we're going to offer 140 placements across the group. Now, it's easy when I say that quick. We're a really large organisation, so you'll be exposed if you decide to go down the T-level route to finding a work experience placement, and it could be big employer or it could be small employer. But clearly we're a fan of the fact that we've had that amount of growth. So if you just bump us on to the next slide, please, Mark. So where we are across the country, we align our college partners to where we have key hubs for Lloyds Banking Group. So that's West Yorkshire, the Northwest, the Southwest, and in London. So I'd love to be able to say we can take on students from any college or school across the UK, but unfortunately it does need to be around one of our sites, and we've got a little bit of a rule of thumb that we don't want to stress people out or give a really onerous commute. So we've got kind of a 30 minutes to 45-minute commute rule of coming into our offices for placements. And that's why we partner now with 10 colleges who you'll see across that little location map there. Placements themselves are paid at Lloyds Banking Group, so 90% of employers don't pay, because it's almost like a case of the give back from the employer is the placement itself. But again, being a large corporate institution, we wanted to do, we felt it was right, we felt it was probably more of a realistic experience actually being paid to do your job, and on the strength of that we were able to set some expectations with our students about some work that needed to be delivered. So don't think of a T-level work placement as doing a photocopy and making the tea. It couldn't be further from the truth. It is a genuine job role. But to win that privilege with Lloyds Banking Group, and other employers will do this as well, we will go out to our partner colleges for year 1 students and talk about what Lloyds is like a little bit, and Jamie will do a little bit more about that too in a moment, I'm sure. And then we do kind of a pre-placement interview as well, and if you're successful obviously at that interview, then we welcome you onto a work placement with Lloyds Banking Group. So next slide please, Mark. Just kind of gives you probably what you're most interested in for kind of students on the call, and parents as well, in terms of, well, what do the students say about the placements with Lloyds? So this kind of gives a bit of hopefully a combination of insight into what you might learn technically, but also some of those employability skills that Claire mentioned earlier at the start of her session. That's as much about what the placements is about as well. So again, as a large employer, we get to connect our students at different parts of the organisation and provide a really broad experience. If you're in a small employer, it might be that you are kind of a 1-man band or a 10-man band. So your job role could be really, really onerous and not be able to have kind of the luxury, for want of a better phrase, of being able to bounce about different business areas. It will be horses for courses on that point. But you can see some of the things. That's Casey, who's one of our previous students, now turned apprentice and working just like Jamie is at Lloyds Banking Group. So a little selfie there. And you can just pull out some of the things that the students have been involved with. So, from getting involved with coding to actually learning from yourself and what kind of style you are and how to interact with others so that you can collaborate in the nicest way with others in the team, to doing interview prep for kind of post T-level qualification, so mock interviews, getting prepared for interview questions, and also generally just understanding what it's like to work within a team and how teams are managed. And then next slide, Mark, just gives a little bit of an example of the so what. So again, as I mentioned, this is a proper job at Lloyds Banking Group for your 10 weeks that you're with us. So some of the outputs that the students have landed for us have been creating a chat bot. We've had some intranet pages that have been designed for different business areas. We've had financial dashboards that have been produced as well. So long after the students have enjoyed the placements and then moved on and gone back to college to continue the studies, these things have created a little bit of a legacy. So that chatbot I know is still in use in one of our business areas, as are some of the dashboards that get produced. And then final slide for me, I think just sums up kind of our business case. So this is why we do as an employer. So yes, T levels are a great thing to support as a large employer, but there's a business benefit for us as well. So back to the bit I mentioned earlier about that gap for under 18 work experience. We've now in the nicest possible way got a talent pipeline by having T-level students coming to spend the time with us. So we recruit hundreds of apprentices each year, and some of them are in kind of sectors where skills are a real shortage. So a lot of our T-level placements are in the digital space. So software engineers, cybersecurity, data analysts, as Jamie knows all too well about. So if we get early access to that talent by a work placement, we create that affinity with Lloyds Banking Group, hopefully. So the students come in like us. And, the software engineers of this world might not necessarily think of Lloyds Bank as their employer of choice while they're going through college, might think of it as more of a traditional bank and think, well, actually, it's an Apple or a Google who I want to work for. So that's the rub for us. And then the process is you get a bump up the assessment process. So our traditional apprenticeship assessment process for whole of market is you submit an application, you then might do online tests, you then might do a job insight assessment, you then might do an assessment centre, and then if you jump through all those hoops, you might win yourself a position at the group. But because we get to see T-level students over the course of 10 weeks, we get to make a proper assessment over that period of time rather than just judging it on how you might perform on any given day in an assessment centre. So you come and have your time with us and you do a great job, you impress your boss. We put in an independent strengths-based interview, and then 50% of the students that enjoy a placement with us will end up being offered an apprenticeship with the bank on completion of the studies. So again, that just writes the business case for us from a commercial perspective. And the little icon in there of we're a national winner. I hope this doesn't sound too boasty, but the National Apprenticeship Awards are something that have been running for a number of years. And for the very first time in 2024, November of last year, a T-level Employer of the Year category was introduced in Lloyds Banking Group with the first winners of that as well. So clearly we must be doing something right, but at the same time, we love T-levels, and that's why we're such a sponsor. So I'm going to take a breath because I've been talking at a real pace there, but I'm going to go into the best bit of this section if you just move us on, Mark, and that's it to chat to Jamie and Matt. So with your blessing, Mark, if we can just knock the slides off for a second before we bring Helen back in, just so everybody can see Jamie and Matt on screen. That's brilliant. So welcome. This is the father and son show. So this is the being there and done that session. I'm just going to fire a few questions at you both, if I may. So Jamie, I'll start with your good self, if that's okay. So can you just give us a little bit of background? So what T level did you undertake, and just tell us a little bit about your journey so far, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I did a digital T level, digital technology and solutions. Which lasted 2 years. I was the first cohort to actually do a T-level, so I didn't really know what to expect because there wasn't that much, obviously, past experience. However, it went really well. I fully enjoyed the 2 years because even though when you are in a classroom, it's a lot of coursework type learning, so you work on projects over a period of time, so it's not like your normal exams of you've got to do that exam at that date. So the learning was very well adjusted to how I prefer. Then I unfortunately didn't get accepted to work for Lloyds, but I very much enjoyed my work placement, which was for like an e-commerce company, and then I did that from March to about December, and doing as much opportunity as possible because it is a really good way to build up your skills.
So that, I mean, that's a great example. So just for the record, what Jamie's saying is he didn't enjoy your placement with Lloyds, big corporate. Your company was a lot smaller, Jamie, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the company that I worked for, there was about 8 of us, including myself. So very small and like very independent.
Brilliant. So as I mentioned earlier, could be either side of those spectrum. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for that intro. And Matt, you must have had a decision to make when you were trying to guide Jamie, especially kind of a couple of years back. So, from a parent's perspective, that's what today's all about, isn't it? It's giving a little bit of insight into what T levels are. But where was your head at? Because when T levels was such a new qualification, certainly not tried and tested when Jamie was applying, how did you cope with that? Did you have any concerns? How did it work out?
So I was I've got a little bit of a cheat because as I work in education, I kind of knew about T levels from my current job, but as a parent, obviously not having any obviously stats or anything to fall back on, any real information, obviously it was a bit of a concern. But obviously we think about all the different options available. Obviously we did look at A levels, but they're very exam based. You don't particularly specialise. You do maybe 3 or 4 different subjects, but you're not focusing on one. We looked at BTECs, very vocational. I did a BTEC myself when I went to college. Really enjoyed it. And we also looked at maybe doing apprenticeships straight from after school. And then it was just when, again, we look around and it was actually on the Calderdale College website, we saw this T level. And one thing that we really liked about it was it's basically the best of both worlds, or best of all the worlds. You get your work experience, and I think that's what employers want more. They want students with those work experience skills, not necessarily just lots of classroom skills. It is vocational, but there's still that exam base, so there's still something that you've had to do, maybe being put under a little bit of stress, and you've got to perform under those conditions, and all those are obviously their character building traits, which obviously you need to take on into obviously the world of employment.
It is. Oh, that's brilliant to hear your interpretation of it. And I know you've got a head start being in education, but it was still a leap of faith. So listen, we've heard Claire talking about giving a professional overview of what T levels are. How do you explain them when you're chatting with friends and family? But both of you, how do you kind of across the dinner table get across what's the best bit of T levels?
I think the way that I explained it was sort of like my dad said, best of both worlds is you do education and you're still working towards a qualification of some sort. And like I said, it's equivalent to 3 A levels. So you're putting your eggs in one basket in terms of coursework, but you're more specialised in that area rather than doing 3 A levels in maths, science, and English, for example, and then like struggling to know everything in those 3 subjects. So I think the way that I explained it was, in my opinion, it was a lot better than an A level because it allowed me to focus on one thing rather than multiple things. And then, like I said, as we were thinking about doing an apprenticeship anyway, still having that work experience, it was really fun and exciting for me, and I really enjoyed it. How about yourself?
I think because again, I at the school I work at, because a parent of someone who's done T levels, apparently I'm the guru of T levels. Again, it's that thing of like, if Jamie had done A levels, he'd done computer science, he'd done maths, and then something else, and that's something else. Again, depends what was on offer and is it really applicable to what it was doing. Whereas the T level, it was all basically computer science, but really honing into lots of different areas. So obviously really ups your skill level in a certain pathway that you're interested in.
Perfect. Thanks both. And then Jamie, tell us about the industry placement then. So you mentioned small organisation that you work for. How did that help you develop your skills and I guess your confidence in the workplace?
So I think the fact that I didn't join Lloyds was sort of like even though I was slightly disappointed, but I was also like a added benefit because like joining a work company is like really sort of, it can be seen as really terrifying, especially if you've had no work experience before like myself. So I think joining a small company like I did, it was sort of like a nice introduction into this is what the working world is like. So like I said, I worked for a company that did e-commerce, so they produce websites for other businesses, and they didn't really have a data person. So during my placement there, I focused on making their data flow a lot more quickly across their databases, and just making it a bit more efficient and easier to find certain information rather than it being all over the place like it originally was. Through that, I also did pick up on how do you produce a website from sort of the networking within the company. But as they don't, you find this probably from every work experience as a student, is they don't expect you to know everything. So if it takes you like weeks to do it because during your normal college term, you will only do 1 day a week. So if that takes you 2-3 days, that's okay because it like if it takes you like 2-3 weeks, obviously that's okay because it would be about 2-3 days in the real workplace. So you've got a bit more leniency to learn and understand things to a good extent.
Perfect. Well, practice environment is the wrong word, but essentially you're getting to do things at an easier pace. Brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. And then Matt, what have you seen in Jamie since he started his journey? So personal growth, academic growth. Have you seen a difference in him?
Yeah, I say he's gonna hate me for saying this now, but like he now doesn't stop talking. He's really talkative. Like from the person who, when he left secondary school, like yeah, not very vocal. But now he's just really talkative. He'll actually enter conversations, and he'll speak up in crowds. And like real surprise, like when he's been working for Lloyds, he's obviously he was a founding member of a group, which again I think that confidence has come from his T level. His obviously I think his critical thinking's got a lot better. He's very proactive now because of his T level. I think that's part of maybe the assessment that they had to do when you maybe think about planning the time on when you're going to do certain parts to fit everything in with the time limit. He's very creative now and resilient. I think that's like the main thing.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Jamie looked really, really comfortable when he was saying all those things about him, Matt.
Good.
Yeah, but like just to add on that, I agree. It's like my teacher, whilst doing my T level, like I remember sort of when I was getting my results, she said to me like it's surprising how far I've come because like my dad said is I was a very internal person. I didn't speak to that many people, and then when I did finish my T level, I was the exact opposite. So it's surprising what that confidence does give you in such a short period of 2 years.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Jamie. Right, last question each. Jamie, what was it like trying to secure your apprenticeship? So clearly you did end up joining Lloyds and you were really successful, obviously, in that process. But what was it like on the hunt? And then give us a little bit about what your time at Lloyds has been like so far on the other end as a permanent employee.
So I think securing an apprenticeship is hard work. It's like you've got to put your time and effort into making sure you do want that placement, because it is such a competitive area. However, it is worth it once you do get on it. However, what I felt with Lloyd's application process was a lot more nicer, as in it was more well structured. It was more relaxing in terms of the questions and the assessment centre that you do compared to other compared to like other assessment centres that I did. So maybe that's why I got accepted, because I was a lot more myself. I was more relaxed, so I was able to actually put the true me in rather than my interview me. Because obviously people say that you put on a persona when you're in an interview, and then, like I said, I luckily secured a placement. From start to end, that took about 3-4 months, which was really quick compared to other companies. And then I've been doing a level 4 data analyst apprenticeship, which I finished, and now I'm doing a level 6 data science to get my degree. And I think from what I've gathered, and it's a lot better than going to a university, because obviously you're doing work experience, you're working on real life problems that a bank or the company does have to solve. And when people say like you won't, that social life disappears, that's not true. Like I do loads of projects that increase my social like capability and those skills within there. And then obviously you get your time to focus on your learning. And so your managers will go, okay, what day do you want to focus on your learning? And then obviously for the 4 other days, you do your actual day job. And there's a lot of opportunities to also speak to other T-level students, speak to other apprentices. So if you do feel like you're alone and that you'd want to have some help in a certain area, there is that network out there to actually help you and progress.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks. And it sounds like an apprenticeship's definitely the route for you. And I know you mentioned university, which wasn't your route, but Helen, in a moment, I'll bring in just to talk about different options, because that might be the route for some post C-level. Brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. Matt, just last one before we do move over to Helen. Just finally, from a parent's perspective, is there anything you wish you had known before Jamie starts at T-level in terms of advice then you can now pass on to the parents listening today?
I think about what you want to do after that college course, and think about it now. Those 2 years will fly by, and if you are thinking about university, UCAS starts like in the autumn term of your second year at college. So if you want to go to like Oxford or Cambridge and do some doctorate, then it probably have to be an A-level, but actually think about where you want to go. Think about your pathway. Think about how do you best learn. Do you is it sat in a classroom, more lecture style, or is it that mix between obviously a little bit of working and a little bit of vocational, like that best of both worlds?
Yes, that's brilliant. Lovely way to end it. Thank you so much, Matt, for your final comments there. Jamie, thank you for sharing your story as well. Really, really good.
No problem.
So, Mark, if you can just pop the slides back on, we're just started to get into destinations there. So, Matt finished with just think about what that destination might look for you, or look like for you. Sorry. So, Helen, I'll bring you in, if I may, just to talk about what some of those routes may look like. And just as we are doing that, I think Mark's going to skip us on. There we are. I'll get myself over to the chat and see if I can pick up any questions and give Elena a hand. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, so hopefully now we're beginning to gain a bit of an understanding that the T-level route allows the students to gain a blend of high-level qualification and some practical hands-on experience. So considering students looking to enter employment or employment with further studies, such as perhaps a level 4 or level 5 qualification after completion of their T-level course, the T-level is a unique combination, providing the student with a strong offering to a potential employer or the employer that's actually hosted their placement. And this is really because the student offers both academic success blended with sufficient practical experience, which basically allows them to hit the ground running. Equally as important is the actual certificate itself and the hands-on practical experience that the students gaining. And they'll also gain some workplace readiness whilst they're attending the placement. I'm talking perhaps about professional workplace behaviours. So attendance, punctuality, even something as simple as an effective email communication. The student has a clear understanding of what work in their chosen field looks and feels like on a day-to-day basis when they've completed. So it won't be a case of they're undecided usually when they've finished a placement, and you know, it's a case of I'll try this line of work and see if it works out for me. Proof of success of a T-level can be provided by a student who commenced apprenticeship with Lloyds Banking Group further to her time at Calderdale College. I think it was about 3 years ago now. A student by the name of Labour who we keep in touch with. She continues to thrive and develop within the Lloyds environment. Labour's provided me with 1 or 2 points of with regards to her experience and her achievements and her journey with Lloyds to date. So I'd just like to share one or 2 of those points with you. Labour noted that she's worked across different areas such as cloud and workplace tech, and she's gained valuable experience and enhancing my knowledge within the workplace. She's contributed to key projects across different locations within the UK for the group, and she's gained valuable experience in project management, teamwork, and problem solving. It's actually quite challenging to secure destination figures from the Department for Education, the government at the moment. However, individual colleges are keeping records of basically where the students are going once they've completed the course. So at Calderdale College, we've just been tracking some of our students, and I'd just like to share a sample of where our students have been going, really. So there's quite a lot of Halifax is made up of quite an eclectic mix of different types of companies, actually. There's been quite a lot of our students that have been retained by small to medium-sized enterprises. However, Lloyds is a major employment site here in Halifax, and quite a large number of students have since been retained by the banking group. So just thinking about our digital and business students who've been offered level 4 apprenticeships with Lloyds, just looking at the figures here, back in September 23, there was 1, that grew to 9 in 24. And this September, there'll be 15, a blend of business and digital students, starting with Lloyds Banking in Halifax. So the intake of industry placement students has reached an all-time high this year, with an offering of industry placement from Lloyds Bank in Halifax to a total of 27 students. Can I have the next slide? Okay, so sorry, could we just skip on to the next one again? Thank you. So I'd just like us to take a look at the T-level from perhaps an employer's perspective that may answer some of your questions. So I think probably the main thing is it's a 315-hour interview, a try before you buy, really. Amazingly, just looking at some statistics, 33% of employees leave business within the first 90 days. Some of them are leaving because it didn't meet the employee's expectations. But from both a student and an employer point of view, 315 hours is ample time for them to get to know each other. It also creates a talent pipeline from the employer's perspective as well. This could be a succession pipeline programme where high potential employees are identified, given targeted training and development opportunities, and provided with stretch assignments to help them gain the skills and experience needed to fill key roles within the organisation in the future. It creates the opportunity to train a young person. As a mentor, a lot of organisations are actually looking towards perhaps team leaders who are looking to step up to be managers. And for them, for those relatively new mentors or managers, it improves their communication and personal skills. It's all about good communication, empathy, and building rapport with your staff, isn't it? Provides the individual with motivation, insights, and encouragement to others. It helps them gain a new perspective as well as boosting their self-confidence. For the employer, another example would be it helps build a more diverse and creative workforce. A good example of this would be actually our local council that acknowledged the fact that they had got an ageing workforce, and in the next 5 to 10 years, a high percentage of their workforce would be entering retirement, which would leave them with very few staff. So it's got them to thinking about some succession planning, and they've discovered T-levels, and I'm happy to say that quite a number of the students here have progressed to higher level apprenticeships, having completed their T-level with the local council. That concludes me. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, thanks, Helen. Thanks for the insight there. So lots of choice and not one right route, if that makes sense. So folks, we'll open it up now the last few minutes for Q&A. So again, Mark, just knock the slides off now, because if anybody does want to come off camera or off mute just to ask a question directly, please do so. And I've kept an eye on the chat, and there's just one question, Jamie. I'm going to bring you in a second if I can. So Amanda was just asking, how do T-level students find a workplace with hybrid working? Is it more difficult to make those connections, access support in the workplace, or work alongside colleagues face to face? So just before I answer, I'll let Jamie give a bit of a view. The way T-levels are almost mandated from the government as they are to be, while you're on placements, as much as possible face to face. Now there are some concessions in there, and Elena will know this more than me, but there's pretty much a 20% concession, so equivalent of 1 day per week from home, and there's been a recently introduced concession so that in the digital space particularly you can have 50% of your time working in home. My experience, before I kind of get a view from Jamie, is as an employer such as Lloyds, we would not want to have hybrid working in the early part of placement. So we have a 2-week block, what we call a boot camp, where people come in, get their feet under the table, meet the team, and then come back for a full 8-week block after first year exams. And in that 8-week block, again, we want the students to have at least 2 weeks with their placement manager, with the wider team, to get settled, understand the ways of working, and potentially then look at hybrid stuff. So we'd always set the scene. Some employers might be fully face-to-face, and I dare say, Jamie, that was probably for the case for you during your placements. But maybe the twist on it, Jamie, to try and answer Amanda's question, you are now at the other end where you're in a hybrid working role. So how does that work for you? Is it difficult to make connections or access support? Is kind of Amanda's question.
I think if you go about it in the right way, as in you make that effort to make those connections, working from home isn't as any different as being in the office. So I speak to loads of people on a daily basis that when I'm at home, and so I can see how for some people it may seem like a weird thing about, obviously you're not getting those in-person connections. However, if you want to have those connections and make the effort to have those connections, then it's definitely no different.
Thanks, Jamie. Elena, you've just popped your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on that because it's a really good question around the kind of hybrid, and that was great to hear your reflections, Jamie. I think for us as well, we kind of have tried to emphasize that hybrid and remote working should really only be used where it's kind of really relevant to the industry and the sector that is also using hybrid and remote as part of their work as well now. And we've also had some really nice examples of students perhaps being given like an apprenticeship as their kind of buddy, and they then have regular check-ins with them while they're working remotely. So for us, it's really important that they still have the kind of very much the well-being and welfare support through their employer with regular check-ins. They have that network, and kind of best practice, we've seen a lot of students doing that remote working towards the end of their placement, as John kind of mentioned. So they've then kind of built those networks beforehand and they don't feel isolated. But yeah, that's really interesting to hear your reflections on that, Jamie.
It is. Thanks, Elena. Cool. So we don't have any more questions in the chat, but just to buy us 30 seconds more, if anybody does want to have another question, I'm just going to revisit some of the things in the chat so people can see if you're unable to access what the questions are being. So if you do want to ask a question, pop your hand up, come off mute, or pop something in the chat. But just to kind of reflect on what we've been asked so far. So we had a question around, is it feasible to do a mixture of A levels and T levels? And pretty much it's not recommended, just due to the combination of the two together being a little bit unworkable. So Elaine had put a comment in to say T levels are designed to be equivalent to 3 A levels, including a substantial placements, making quite intensive. Some institutions might allow you to take an A level alongside a T level if you have a strong academic record, but best to check with your provider. So practically that would be really, really tough. Can it be done? Possibly, but just make sure that you're up for the task in the nicest possible way and your provider is able to accommodate it. Lawrence, that's great. I'll let you go and read that bedtime story. Thanks for joining us. Then we were just asked around the placements for Lloyds. So is the 150 placements that we're doing this year split equally across locations? And thereabouts is the answer yes. There may be kind of a slight variance with that, but Northwest, Southwest, West Yorkshire and London, pretty much we'd have a quarter of all placement propositions in each of those areas. Amanda's question we covered, and Oliver had asked, are T levels equivalent to 3 times as much work as an A level? So I put my view on there to say, listen, that's a fair question, and due to the construct of the curriculum, and as Elaine has mentioned in her points, one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to combine potentially 3 A levels with a T level, I think they are thereabouts, slightly different construct. Slightly different in that you'll have some of your learning being in the practical setting with a T level. Obviously 20% of that time wouldn't be in the classroom. Elaine, I don't know whether you'd add anything on that, or Helen and Claire, whether you'd add anything, but I think yes. I think it's almost like 3 for the price of 1.
Yeah, I think that's right, John. I'd echo that. And yeah, they were very much designed to be substantial and equivalent to kind of 3 A levels. So as you say, they kind of have that split time in the curriculum where they're kind of building that academic knowledge, and also then time on the placements, they can do things practically. I'd say the difference is that they also have this 315-hour industry placement built into the T level. So the hours actually spent on the T level could in some cases be more than students who might be doing A level. So it is a really rigorous program, and yeah, really kind of comprehensive for students.
Perfect. Thanks, Elena. Well, folks, that recap I think has brought us to close, because there's no further questions that I can see in the chat. So first of all, from me, a big thank you to all our guests today. So to Claire and Helen from Calderdale for giving us that insight on what T levels are and some of the future destinations. To Jamie and Matt for obviously talking through your experience, some really, really rich content in there. And Elena, thanks for coming along and helping us with some of those questions that we've picked up as well. So you're free to leave. Good luck with your choices, no matter which way you go. Hopefully it's given you a bit more of insight on T levels as being potentially one of those choices. But best of luck for the future, and thank you for coming along today. Cheers, guys.